It's October now, and welcome to our new series
of myths, legends, folklores, and just strange and weird stuff.
Like, share, and subscribe down below because you're not going to want to miss this new series. Join us as we discuss the legend of the Goblin of Easton. Hey, wait a minute. Could any of this really be true?
We Pennsylvanians certainly aren't strangers to urban legends, and maybe we've even told a few in our own time. The thing about urban legends is, no matter how wildly impossible they may seem, they remain alive in our imaginations as often terrifying tales that are passed down from generation to generation. The legend of the Goblin of Easton in Pennsylvania, for example, just might send chills down your spine. Easton happens to be a charming city with a population of just under 30,000, and it's perhaps best known for such popular attractions as the Crayola Factory, the State Theater, Easton's Farmers Market, the Carl Stirner's Art Trail, and the Canal Museum, where you can take a ride on a canal boat with mules. We're here in the woods on the outskirts of Easton to tell a tale of, well, the Goblin of Easton. It lays claims to a chilling urban legend that is said to date back to Easton's earliest days, sometime in the late 1880s. There was a monastery in Easton and a monk who absolutely was greedy. He loved money way more than he loved his creator. And the monk became a confident and a trusted person in the community, where he listened to confessions, as often men of the cloth do, but he listened to confessions of people who were mostly rich and very, very wealthy. That monk was upset because here he was poor, and here all these wealthy and rich people had all this money, but they were sinners. They had all these sins. So he decided to somewhat get even. Instead of keeping the residents' sins quiet, this monk threatened to expose all of their secrets if they didn't give in to his demands. And what do you think his demands were? Money. So, like I said, most of those who confessed were rich and wealthy. So the monk could squeeze and squeeze. He could squeeze huge amounts of money. However, he became even greedier. One day, his grief turned him into a murderer because he beat an elderly woman who either wouldn't pay him on time or wouldn't pay him at all. So he beat her to death. His crimes earned him a date with the executioner, and he was hung to death, so they thought. Though death didn't stop him. He immediately leaped back to life as a frightened monster before fleeing into the nearby woods. That greedy monk, however, he would return every so often to devour the monks who remained at the former monastery. Those monks who remained fled for their lives, leaving the monastery to fall in disarray. Thus, the legend of the Goblin of Easton was born.
Now let's analyze this and see if this could really be true.
Well, could there have been a such thing as a monk who was greedy? What do you think, Chris?
I think it's very plausible because even nowadays, there's people all over the world that are that greedy.
That's true. So that part of the story definitely could be true. All right, about the next part. What about The monk was so greedy that he heard the secrets of the wealthy and was bribing them to keep those secrets and not tell them. Do you think that's possible?
Oh yeah, again, I think that this is all what happens all over the world, and I think it happens every day.
So that part of the story could be possible. Do you think it's possible that he was so upset and so mad that he beat a woman to death because she didn't pay?
I think that's highly possible.
Me too. Now, I think it's also very possible and very likely that they would have hung him for such crimes. Today they don't really have hanging in this country, but they would have hung you definitely for killing other people back then. So definitely that part of the story is true, that he could have been hung, and probably was. Now this is where the story gets interesting, because after they hung him, they cut him down and he fell to the ground and then got up and turned into a monster. Is that possible? Well, we know, right, Chris, that it's possible to survive a hanging.
Yep.
Other people have. It's unlikely, but it's possible, and people have survived a hanging.
Yes, they do.
But how about the turning into a monster part? Well, I mean, that's the strange part. But if you were hung and then cut down, and you survived the hanging, you were cut down, could your body have deformed a little bit? Like swelling, veins sticking out, maybe some bones broken, and you survived that, and you appeared to look like a monster from what you've just been through. I mean, is that possible? I mean,
maybe.
I don't know, is that possible? And so they just thought he looked like a monster.
As we say, with every urban legend, there's usually some hint of truth.
So that part is, it's possible, I guess. And then he ran into the woods, never to be seen again. Now, if he ran into the woods or stumbled into the woods after being hung and cut down, maybe you would never see him again. Maybe he died shortly thereafter, and animals took him and scattered him, and I'm sure they don't have rescue people like they do nowadays to go search the woods. So, I mean, maybe that is possible. And the last part of it, of him coming back every so often to kill the other monks that were left in the monastery, that does seem a little far-fetched, that he healed himself enough that, you know, he was still alive and didn't perish in the woods after he ran. So that does seem a little far-fetched, but nowadays, you never know. Like Chris said, they claim with every legend or folklore that there's a little truth to all of it. So we'll never know, but I know one thing. I don't discount anything, because I've learned over my life, and especially with the last 2+ years that we've all gone through, that anything is possible. And anything can and will happen. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised right now if the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man walked right down this path. I just wouldn't. Chris, after telling this story, I'm getting the creeps now. Let's get out of these woods.
Oh man, I felt like a lot of walking today.
Oh, Chris.